Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way that he should go, so that when he's older, he will not depart from it. Now, in that moment in time, that verse meant absolutely nothing to me. It just stuck out because it was the only verse where she had a yellow highlighter. How do we go with the flow and not go against the flow?
So it seems like you have developed sort of family values and non negotiables.
Work ethic is a huge family value.
Welcome to
Yeah.
Parenting the Now Generation. I am so excited to have today's guest, Dr. CleRenda McGrady, my dear friend in Houston, Texas. Welcome, Dr. CleRenda McGrady. I know you recently got your doctorate.
Yes, thank you so much, Rania, for having me here. I just want to say I appreciate you, the work that you're doing in the community, how you show up, and I just appreciate you. Thank you for having me on today.
No, it's a pleasure. You know, when I got together with Hope Media Group and KSBJ here in Houston, and we came up with this concept. I've been wanting to do a parenting podcast for some time, and I started to put together an inspirational board of people I really wanted to talk to, and you were at the top of that list. Okay,
Oh,
mom of four. All right.
yeah.
God bless you. God bless you. Philanthropist, author, founder of Push Girls Academy, an entrepreneur. You're also the founder of Renew Coaching Center, where you are a firm believer of when we renew our thoughts, we transform our situations. So, I mean, gosh, where do we begin? Because you're doing so many different things and it's all so incredible.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. Where do you want to begin?
Well, I'm
But thank
always
you.
interested in sort of this one mother of four. I think that is going to be the biggest thing that takes your time. And I want to talk to you about parenting children. I want to talk to you about why you started the Push Girls Academy. But I also think it's important to set the backdrop. So you're married to very famous Tracy McGrady, T Mac, as he's known, professional basketball player. I say his name in front of my nephew in Boston, and he literally faints and passes out. But what it means is that you live an interesting life. And for those
Yeah.
who follow Clarenda on social media, and she's very open, she shares her life and her kids. You're very rooted in your faith,
Yeah.
and you don't shy away from that. Yet you're sort of on this peripheral of rubbing elbows with very famous people and having very unbelievable experiences. So let's start with how you've navigated that as you've raised four kids who potentially could have anything they want, meet anybody they want. You can open any door at any time. But yet, I can tell from following you, you've raised them in a Christian school and you seem to have, I don't know if strict is the right word, but you've put very specific Christian boundaries around them. And I've always found that to be very interesting. Talk about how you've developed that and how that's worked in your family.
Great, great question. Um, I think it's important to maybe answer this question from the very beginning. And the very beginning is from where I come from, is a mother and father who were deeply rooted in their faith and shared that with us, their children. I remember graduating from college, and my mom gave me a Bible for a gift. Now, I didn't open that Bible probably just some years later. But
You kept
uh,
it with you, apparently.
yeah, yeah. But what the point I'm getting to is when I decided to really open it and read it for myself, I noticed of all the verses in that Bible, Rania, she highlighted one. It was Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way that he should go, so that when he's older, he will not depart from it.
Hmm.
Now, in that moment in time, that verse meant absolutely nothing to me. It just stuck out because it was the only verse where she got a yellow highlighter and highlighted. And so when I think about that, my mom planted the seed early on, well before I ever thought of having children, ever before I even thought that I would want children. That was the verse that she highlighted because she knew at the proper time that would be the verse that I need to cling on to for my own family. And so I really just credit my mother and father, particularly my mother, and I think of that all the time. And that truly was that was a seed. That was a seed to say to know. I guess she foresaw in the future the importance of that verse for me when I started to have my own kids and have my own family. And so again, I hung on to that verse to train up my kids in the way that they should go, not the way that's easy for them, not the way of the world, not what society says, but the way in which they should go. And oftentimes it's unpopular. I've not always been the popular parent for them. It's you know particularly when they're comparing me to other households or to other moms. But I tried to hold on to that, and it's not been perfect, but that's been my guide is to train them up in the way that they should go.
It's such a valuable verse, actually, and to think of how it can shift an entire family and ultimately an entire generation. I'm
Absolutely.
thinking of you and seeing pictures of you, tiny, tiny CleRenda, mighty CleRenda, but your family's tall. You're the littlest one of the bunch. But I also have always seen your power. And from notes you've put around your house to jars that have different messages in them to prayer requests for the family, how have you navigated those tricky situations, whether it be the boy, because you have two boys, two girls?
Two boys, two girls, yes.
And I'm sure they've come to you with different experiences. Has that, as you've raised them, weaving your faith into their lives, has it been a different strategy for the boys versus the girls?
Not necessarily. Again, our faith has just, I've always been very clear, okay, what are our values? Um, Having those those clear core values, um, having our non-negotiables, but also being very flexible. Okay, the work from the work that you do. We're in some very challenging and chaotic times,
Yes.
and so I've just, no matter what, we go back to our core, our foundation. There's a book that I love. It's called Visioneering by Andy Stanley, I believe. And it's a leadership book, but he has a quote in there and he's talking about our vision and the importance of our vision. And he said to be stubborn about the vision, but flexible about the plan. And I think I hold on to that because I apply that to different areas of my life. And when it comes to parenting, you know, we may say this is how it's going to be. It should look like this, da 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 da. But at the but when it comes down to it, we need to be stubborn about that vision. What is that big vision? Where do we see our kids? What's the generational legacy that we want to live? What that's the vision. But how we get there, it's got to be flexible. And so we are in a world where we are trying to create this dance around instilling our faith and our core values, but yet we are in this world, which is not a perfect world. There's things coming at us every day. And so for me, it's just about how do we balance, how do we do this dance between those core values, but yet the flexibility of still living in this world, living on this earth, and being able to be a little bit more open minded. And unlike my parents, it was very much it has to be this way, it has to be this way. That having that straight, it has to be this way, it doesn't work. It never
Yeah.
has, it never will. And so it's
It's
really about using wisdom to know when to go and when to go and when to say no. It's just about how do we do this dance. It's a rhythm, it's just this cadence. How do we go with the flow and not go against the flow?
But you said something interesting a moment ago. You mentioned non-negotiables.
Yeah.
So it seems like you have developed sort of family values and non-negotiables.
Hmm.
It seems like you've dreamt or prayed for a vision, sort of knowing each of your four kids, and from following you, you can see the differences in each of your four kids.
Yeah.
But yet there's flexibility and sort of navigate, and I think that's been the hardest part of parenting, especially within sort of Christian circles. We
Mhm.
don't know. I think we're having a hard time with the flexibility. Flexibility, what does it mean? How do you always love? How do you always, because we're called to love, period, end of discussion. But how do you have boundaries? How do you say what's right and what's wrong with conviction? It's very difficult, and we all struggle with that. And your kids, I'm sure, even being raised in a Christian school, it doesn't make it necessarily easier, because all of our kids are exposed to the world.
They are exposed to the world, and that's all we can do is I feel like that my kids are now 16, 17, 19, and 22. And I feel like that I've been sowing seeds for all this time. I've been sowing and watering seeds. And at some point, all you can do is sit back and let that harvest come forth.
Mm,
And so I know the seeds that I've planted. And so I have to understand that have peace about the parenting the seeds that I've planted, and know that sure it's not going to be perfect. They're not in a perfect world, but I take solace in knowing that I've been very intentional. And I think that today's parents, we have to be intentional. I'll never forget years ago, I won't use the colorful language that my dad used, but he reminded me early on that I am your parent. I'm not your friend.
mm,
And I think in today's society, we have too many parents that are strong line of friends where we can be friendly. Of course, we want to have a loving relationship. Sometimes when we commingle friend and parent, it blurs the lines.
yeah.
And so for our household, yes, we laugh and we have fun. And, my kids hit me with bro, all the bro talk and all of
Now we're
that.
all bros all the time. Now
We're
everybody's
bro.
bro or
Yeah.
bruh.
Yeah. Right. But however, there's clear boundaries. I'm your parent. I'm your mother. Later in life, maybe we can morph into a friendship. But right now, I'm your parent, and you're going to respect me as parent. And
But
one of the greatest. I'm sorry.
no, no, I was going to say, but making sure that they're able to talk to you about everything too.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I'm very firm on. I want you to talk to me. I don't care how embarrassing you think it may be, how squeamish it may be, uncomfortable, because my mindset is I have to be the culture to the conversation. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I don't want you to go out there and get knowledge from the world, from your friends, from the music, even from your friends' parents, right?
Mm,
Because everyone parents differently. And so I make it very open that, no matter what, even if I disagree with it, my first, I'm your parent and I love you. So even if it's something that's going to hurt me or I disagree with, we try to create an environment where you have to come talk to us. You're not going to be condemned, you're not going to be criticized, you're not going to be, kicked out of the house because you made a
yes.
mistake or you think that I can't talk to my parent. No, but there's so much going on. I have to be my child's first line of that communication. Yeah.
So the world you live in, and it's, again, you are literally, a very active mom of four. I mean, it's you're in your kids' lives. Again, if you follow Clarenda on social media, you'll see that she's very involved in her children's lives, and her children are very involved in the family, and her husband's very involved in all of it. You travel together. It seems like when Tracy has something going on, you're all there
Mhm.
with him. You're a strong unit. But your kid, and there's no but, your kids have seen things and been exposed to things that the average child wouldn't, whether it's a front row seat at a game or meeting other players, or just the luxury that world provides. How do you raise them around, okay, there's no sort of this is all good, this is all bad, but where does our value come from? Because I feel like you've done a very good job. And I think a lot of young kids can get lost in, oh my gosh, the fame, the fortune, the ability, the doors we can open. But I feel like you've been very good at grounding your children in biblical values.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it goes down, Rania, to having again, it goes back to those values. What are your core values? Our values, it's something that we throw around that word, but you have to be intentional about that. What are our family, our core values? Because of our values, that's how we make decisions. That's how we move through life. Our values is this internal compass. Do we go left or do we go right? And so for me, humility is huge. It's a huge family value. Work ethic is a huge family value. These things are huge, so therefore that's how we pivot. That's how we make decisions. And so humility is very important. So therefore, although they may have exposure to many things, they still have to understand nothing is given. We work for all the things that we have, to be appreciative. Um, so I go back to my own family background. Think about how important humility was and gratitude was. My dad, if he gave us something and we didn't say thank you, he took it back. That was it. You get one chance. you know. And
I
so
love that.
again, gratitude is very important. That's another core value. And so that is how we're able to navigate just by having those core values. And this is how we make decisions. If you don't have those core values in place, it's easy to get lost in the sauce, so to speak. And so I try to live according to those values and make decisions that are based on those values. And so that's how we operate. Nothing is ever perfect. But having those sort of values just sort of help us to navigate our home, navigate the expectations as well.
And nothing is guaranteed. And it it just I'm thinking about it as you're talking to it. Your family knew Kobe Bryant, and to think that somebody who has everything, life is not guaranteed. In a
It's
moment,
not.
it can be gone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure that was a discussion in your home. I mean, Houston, July 4th, over the July 4th weekend, young, innocent children that were going to church camp, that wanted to spend their summers building sisterhoods and friendships and learning about the Bible and exploring and developing their faith, lost themselves in a devastating act of God, even, right? I mean, that's a weather event. It's an act of God.
Absolutely.
How do you make sense of those things?
You know what? We talked about that. We prayed for those families, for that community. And it was a reminder that, the Bible says that it rains on the just and the unjust. And that just basically means bad things will happen to good people. And we can't make logic of that. But also is a reminder that this life is fleeting, it's not fair, and it's like a vapor. And so that's the importance of living a life knowing that this it's not promised. Tomorrow is not promised, and we have to live a life that's honoring and that one that we are living it without taking it for advantage, not putting things off, knowing that at any moment this could be our last moment, and so we have to live that life of integrity.
I love that you said that because it brings me to two things. And one of these topics we're going to hold for a second sit down with Dr.
Mhm.
CleRenda McGrady. She talks about through her coaching this complete mindset shift and these three principles that literally can redirect your thinking, get you to out of that lull. We all experience it. We want to do something, but we just can't get through. We can't get ourselves up and moving. And so you'll come back and talk to us about that. And
Yeah.
I can't wait for that because I actually took notes as you were talking about it. And I have to tell myself over and over, remind myself of your three principles. They're so good. So we will do a second sit down with Dr. CleRenda McGrady. But I want to talk about you have such value and you make me think of Proverbs 14:1, a wise woman builds her home, but you're building other
Mhm.
people's homes. Why did you
Mhm.
start Push Girls Academy? And what are the goals for that academy?
Yeah. That's a great question. So when I was, um, first of all, PUSH stands for acronym. It stands for Purpose Led, Unstoppable, Success Bound, and Hope Filled. And those are the tenets that ultimately we are striving for the young ladies, for them to be full of purpose, to be unstoppable, to be success bound and hope filled. And again, success is very subjective. Success is what does success mean to you? And that's one of the things that we teach them that, your success is going to look different from my success or her success. and to not get caught up in how the world defines success. If you have to define success for yourself, if not, you'll be continuously on this hamster wheel chasing a definition of success that's not your success. But anyway, I digress. So when
But
I
I
was
love that. It's
little kid,
actually my daughter is applying to college, and this was a part of our conversation in terms of what is success? What
yeah,
is success? And I'll just digress a little bit. We took her to Cairo. We took all of our kids to Cairo, and we took them to this area called El Mokattam, and it used to be, this was years ago. It was where people lived and they manually recycled the trash that came from the city of Cairo. It is a hard place to see. It is deep, 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 deep poverty, and there many people go to just to see it, because like countries have studied these people, the BBC and others, and thought, how have they recycled this trash and been so successful? I mean, it's unbelievable. But at the top of this little village where they live is a church and a monastery, that's also quite beautiful. But I'll just quickly say, we were talking about success. The average person would say these families are not successful. They live in poverty. The stench there is overwhelming. But my daughter said, but when we went there, the people were so happy and they felt
yeah,
such purpose in what they
yeah,
were doing. They showed with joy the way they had developed a manual with their hand system of
mhm,
recycling garbage. They're called the Zebelin. They're called the garbage people.
wow,
Now the country no longer lets them do this. But what is
mhm.
success? So anyway, that story's sort of been
That's
on my
so
mind ever since.
powerful. You
Powerful,
know, and
powerful.
to piggyback off of that, my mother was probably the most successful person I think I'm going to ever meet in life. And
That says a lot
amazing.
too, because you know a lot of people.
She's no longer on this side of heaven. She's on to glory, wearing her wings.
Mm,
However, the most amazing woman ever, the most successful woman ever. And I was reminded a year or so ago, I was cleaning our garage, and I came across a box of her stuff. And it really had me shaken up for a couple or several weeks. I was going through and I found her tax return.
mm.
And my mom's salary, Rania, was $19,000, 500, 19,500,
No.
right? Yes. $19,000. And I was like, I didn't know that. I didn't know we were that close. We were poor.
It's
Um,
not, you think that's not even a livable wage.
no, no. But what it made me realize is, and it reminded me of arguments that my mom and my dad used to have, because she was highly educated. She was highly sought after with different Fortune 500 companies. But my mom worked, she was a teacher at a seminary.
Oh,
And I remember being younger saying, Mom, like, why don't you get a real job? Like, Mom, can you buy me the newest Nikes that are coming out on, when you get your check on Friday? And she often goes, Well, I won't have a check on Friday. I'm like, But why? And she goes, Our check depends on outside donations for the school. It
oh,
was a private Christian school, seminary. And I remember thinking, like, can you get a real job, please? And just so you can get a regular paycheck every Friday, like every other parent. But that was purpose for her. She was successful because she made such a difference in the lives of her students. And I still have students, and the seminary was people from all across the world would come from Asia, from Africa to come and get a Christian education and take it back, take the gospel back to their home country so they could start a church or do whatever. And so she was an integral part of this seminary. She was there for 42 years, and that was her life during missions and ministry. And it didn't pay, but it was a life of purpose for her. It was fulfilling for her. And that was success for her.
yeah.
Although she could go and she was educated, she could do whatever else, but planting that, being a part of that seminary, that was purpose to her. And I sort of was resentful when I was younger because, I felt like so many other kids, I want this, I want that. It was all about me. But as I got older, I was like, oh my goodness, um, the value of that. And so,
Those are eternal.
anyway,
She was planting eternal seeds.
eternal seeds,
She
yes,
was planting, and her return is in heaven in eternity. I can't
absolutely.
even, that is such a
Yeah,
beautiful story. And I think
yeah,
that's why you're planting seeds and these girls that you're mentoring and helping shape so that they can be successful in their own right too. How many girls do you work with?
that, that's so basically the also something interesting. I remember her telling me again, when you're kids, your mom says something and you're like, whatever, whatever. She has this thing where she would say, no, actually, again, she wrote me a card for, I don't know, graduation or something. And I remember her saying, I still have it. It's in my room. And she said, always give back to life the best way you can. If you
Hmm.
see a turtle on a post, he didn't get there on his own. And of
Ah,
course, in my 20s, I was like, what kind of silly thing is this? When I think about that, if you see a turtle on a post, he didn't get there on his own. He didn't jump up there. He didn't climb. He didn't crawl. Someone had to stop, bend down, lift him up, and place him there.
hmm.
And that was the message, was to always give back, always make an impact, always use your influence for the world to do something good for someone else. And so that takes me back to Push Growth Academy. That was the catalyst of it. It's just her legacy. And I remember when I was younger, I would go to school and there was Melinda and Patty. I remember their names. They'd come back to school and they'd be like, Clarenda, you should come with us. We're part of this organization and we do all these cool things. And we learn all these fun things. And I was just like, I want to do that. Like, ask your mom to sign you up. And I asked my mom, hey, can you sign me up to this organization? And I could never really figure out then why she would always just sort of, turn her head to it. But later I found out that this particular organization, it was a mentoring group. It was a great social group for young ladies. It was amazing. But you had to have what I call the three I's:
Hmm.
influence, invitation, or income to join. And we didn't have
Oh,
any of the three. And so that's why my mom always just sort of, steered me away because we couldn't afford to be a part of it. Well, for one, you had to be invited. And so I always remembered that. And I said I wanted to create an organization for young ladies who were just as driven, had as much of a dream and a desire as the next, but who weren't going to get that formal invitation, who didn't have the influence or the income. And so it was a way for me to extend an invitation that maybe they wouldn't have got from any other organization.
Clarenda, it's so beautiful. And the life sort of circles that you have, whether it's the tools your dad gave you and the method of raising you, the Bible your mom gave you, and the one verse she highlighted to your mom's life in circumstances, your life circumstances, and how they've shaped what you've done now. You're so incredible. And I'm excited to have you back because you promised you'd join me again because
Yeah.
I think this sort of falls under what you do through the Renew Coaching Center. But this mind shift change, I think, one, it's for men and women, but I think specifically women need to hear this. I really do. We need to hear it in parenting. We need to hear it in how we navigate potential opportunities in life. And the way you break it down, and you mention a few proverbs, proverbs from the Bible that kind of planted this, but also stories in your family that helped you shape this. I think of one with your son who was 8, dressed as a soldier. Who are you? Who are you? And how sort of that created so much of what you're doing. I'm excited to bring you back and to talk about this. I want to encourage people to follow you. What is the best way for them to follow you and learn more about what you're doing?
So I'm on Instagram right now, which is Dr. dot CleRenda dot McGrady. I've got a couple programs that I'm going to be launching here soon, and so that's probably the best way for right now is through Instagram.
We'll be linking all of that and your website. Dr. CleRenda McGrady, thank you so much for joining us. I know you'll be back. And to
Can't wait.
everybody else, we'll catch you on future episodes of Parenting the Now Generation. Don't forget to subscribe, click, like, share, all the good things. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Thank you, Clarenda.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Bye bye.